Okay, am I actually okay, now I think I'm sorted. Sorry, I didn't even put up the starter for bad start to the morning. Okay. Um my apologies. I was a bit late starting. I woke up early this morning and Justin was live and I just found myself lying in bed and just enjoying listening to Justin's live. Um And then I suddenly realized that I needed to get up because I actually had a live stream to do myself. So if I'm a bit late and a bit discombobulated and a bit disorganized, it's thanks to Justin. Um, no shade on him because we love Justin. Um, but clearly I thought I was organized and I wasn't quite as organized as I was. Okay, so this was meant to play after the intro, but I got messed up because the intro didn't play.
Hi guys, I'm just doing a quick video about the monster bunny. I know it's kind of big right now, but she quit her YouTube and basically everything, and I was bawling my eyes out because of it, because I was one of her regular fans that always watched her, and every time she put something on, I'd be really happy. Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to make a quick video. Also, my hair is turning blonde. I'm in the process of dyeing it. And that's really about it. I just wanted to tell you about Frida.
I won't play all of that one because I did run a audio thing over it to try and get rid of all the music and I didn't. So I may have to actually clip that out later because it may actually give me a content strike for the audio. Okay, so I'll pause it there. That's one of her later ones. It's about the second last one, and then there's one more that's Hayden playing with the cat, which is kind of cute, which I may or may not share at some point in time. So I just want to say the reason I've got Mike's channel, well, I put Mike's channel banner up occasionally anyway. The reason I've got Mike's channel banner up is because Mike is a legend. Mike MX, that is. After yesterday's live stream, Mike dropped back into the comments section and left a link for a video from his from about a month ago. Yeah, I couldn't hear her at that point anyway. It was just loud, depressing, awful music, so it wasn't any point in continuing. Anyway, Mike, being the legend that he is, left a link for a video of his from about a month ago. I'm not playing the entire video because I'd love to see everybody go across and subscribe to his channel because what he does is it's unique and it's brilliant. Yeah, I watched that Spider and the Fly this morning and that was really good too. There's a part of me that would love to just jump on and share his videos occasionally, but I would rather recommend that people go there and watch them themselves because I know from my own experience when I was covering the Kylie Rodney case and I was a new channel with not a lot of subscribers, one of my mentors used to quite often share my shorter videos on her channel. And every time she did, I got less views. And this was someone who was desperately trying to build their channel. And, it's a half a dozen of one, six of another, because I know that, when a content creator promotes your channel, that it's a good thing. But if they play something of yours in entirety, then people don't tend not to go over and watch it themselves. So I would like to encourage everyone to go over to Mike's channel, subscribe, and watch his content because it's really thoughtful content. And when he does research, he does really good research. Now, I'll play the clip first, and then we'll go from there.
I tend to kind of stick to the facts, stay grounded as such. And I've been looking at the blanket, and I want to just go into that for a little bit. The pink blanket found on Lansdowne Road, roughly 62 inches by 90 inches, of plush micro Rochelle.
I'm just going to pause it there, because when I started watching this, I thought, wow, is this guy like some sort of savant that can look at a piece of fabric and know what it was? But no.
And wouldn't it be fitting if that one symbol that was there hanging in that tree, upside down and back to front, that exclamation mark on that piece of evidence, wouldn't it be ironic and fitting if that one piece with that exclamation mark incriminated the person that overly uses exclamation marks? Wouldn't that be something?
So, Mike is a legend. Now, I must admit that I didn't have a clear photo. I love the metaphor too. But I think he's so spot on. How apt would it be if that bit of blanket with the exclamation mark on it was the thing that did help incriminate the person who overuses exclamation marks? Now, I must admit, he's not just astute, but he's got a really, really good eye for things. Now, I had a blurry version of this previously before it was put out by whichever mainstream media put it out. I showed that yesterday in the clip. It would have been CBC because it was Ali Thompson talking at the start. So before that came out, the only versions I'd seen of the blanket were the kind of the fuzzy, blurry ones. And I had tried so hard to try and match the fuzzy image of the blanket to a lol surprise blanket. The biggest problem, and I'll just move on a bit, the biggest problem is that the particular blanket, so I'll zoom in on that first. So when it's so obvious when you see it, when he shows it, it's like, oh wow, that is the blanket. You can see the pink cording on the edge, or the binding. You can see the exclamation mark. I could even see after I looked at his image, and then I looked more closely at the image in the tree, and I'll show you that again in a moment. I could actually see parts of the star that's under the exclamation mark. So for him to actually find this is absolutely brilliant. Because trust me, I spent hours, and I can see Crazy Buck is saying she scanned the internet too. And I can assure you that when Crazy Buck goes searching for stuff, that, she's no lightweight. She knows how to search for these things as well. So, well done to Mike MX. You are like some amazing, amazing person. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it quite so clearly there, but at the very bottom tip, that bit that's like at a spear at the bottom, you can actually just see the edge of a white star. You can also see the black from the bow that's in the doll's hair, just sort of down and off to the side a bit from the exclamation mark. When I look at it now, I'm like, wow, how did I not realize that was an explanation? Far out. Exclamation mark. How did I not realize that? Like, honestly, Mike, well done, because trust me, I spent hours looking. Hours and hours. Now, this particular blanket isn't for sale anymore. And of course, I must admit, while I did do a search, as in, search Canada, searching from Australia, sometimes things don't come up. But he wasn't searching from Canada or America either. Like, yeah, Crazy Half Moon knows. Crazy is tenacious. If Crazy couldn't find it, I couldn't find it. You don't see it, Crazy, you don't see the exclamation mark, or if you look where it comes down at a point and then work your way back, you can see the bottom corner of the exclamation mark. So what Mike showed in his video first was the blanket upside down, because the exclamation mark is upside down in the tree. I wonder if I can run it back. Let me just... Okay, so there it is, upside down. And what you can see in the tree is the dot from the exclamation mark and the pointy bit from the exclamation mark. And if you look really closely, you can also see where the little dot after the L juts into the exclamation mark. You have to look very, very closely. I'm not sure if my cursor shows on the screen for you guys. Can you see the cursor if I put it up on the screen to point at things? There is a teeny tiny dot at the bottom of the exclamation mark, which is the dot that's part of the L. There is a star up towards the branch, and there's also a star pretty much down near the tip of the blanket. Like, I'm in awe. Yeah, I would imagine it's probably a Walmart one. I must admit, yeah, the pink stripe is on the edging. I will bring up another image of just the blanket for you. I hope. Hang on, I'll switch to this one. This one's a bit clearer, so you can actually see one edge has got a black stripe and the other edge has got the pink stripe, and that's the edging of the blanket. It looks to me, and I should have grabbed some images, but I didn't think. It does... You don't see it? Hang on, let me bring it back up. Okay, so look for the navy blue bit, or the purpley navy blue, and you can see a big circle, and that's the bottom of the exclamation mark. I don't know what my brain is fried this morning. That is the bottom of the exclamation mark. And then underneath the big circle, you can see more of that dark purpley navy blue colour that's pointing up towards the dot. And that's the bottom of the exclamation mark. So the exclamation mark is upside down. What you are seeing is that strip of blanket is upside down at where it's hanging down. I never ever would have spotted it. I spent countless hours on this. I kept going back to it because it was annoying the bejesus out of me. I went through all the photos that I have of Lily and Jack, trying to find something of the blanket. It's a blanket. So yeah, I could find blankets that were the same colour. Lol, surprise, blankets that were the same colour. But I was not finding a match. Yeah, I'm blown away that Mike managed to match this up. He's just done an amazing job matching it up. That allowed me. Now, we had a conversation yesterday about the blanket itself and the tensile strength and everything. So, of course, thanks to Mike giving us the blanket, I was able to look it up, and I was able to actually find out some more details of the blanket. So Mike told us some of the details himself. So it is actually a plush micro Rochelle blanket. Now, micro Rochelle, it's like a micro fleece. The fibers are interlocked. So it's not like a regular cotton kind of fiber where the fibers are, they're in lengths, so that if you get a tear, it's just going to keep tearing. It is a fleece texture. The fibers are interlocked, which means that it doesn't tear easily because you don't get a run. It's not like regular cotton or something where you can cut the corner and then rip it. It's the fibers are locked together. Not only that, I looked up what it was in terms of grams per square meter, so GSM. So GSM, grams per square meter, is how many fibers are in an area, like a grams per meter area. And of course, the more fibers you have in an area, the stronger it is. This blanket comes up as having, let me see, I've got my notes here, 200 to 250 GSM. This isn't a cheap blanket. That's quite a high density of fibers, meaning that's going to be really, really hard to rip, especially because it has the binding on the edge. That is, I looked up in terms of, tear resistance and tensile strength, and it says that when you're getting up towards 300, 200 to 300, that is quite good for tear resistance. And what is interesting in the washer spinner, maybe it got ripped. What's interesting is I was, after I saw this, I was kind of researching and everything. And the company that makes these blankets have a whole range that they make. And this is kind of amusing, but there was a Sonic one. And because it's, figured that was a boy's blanket, it is actually advertised as being quite tough and tear resistant. $18.99 at Walmart. Cool. I looked it up. For me, it would cost me $30 and then another $100 postage from the United States. I've not been able to find any in Australia. So it is, as Mike said, it is 62 inches by 90 inches, which in metric is 158 centimeters by 229 centimeters. I don't know what the back looks like. I couldn't see any images of the back. That's a good question. That is a very good question. But the thing that stands out for me is that it is a really high density in terms of the fibers. It would definitely cover a window. You'd have to probably double it over to cover a window. It actually seems quite large to be trying to use it to cover a window. When you think about 158 by 229, that's quite large. That's double bed or queen bed size, I would say. If you were putting it on a kid's bed, you'd double it over probably. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah, it would be for a single bed. It'd have to drape down right down onto the floor. Just trying to think width and stuff. Still be quite wide. I cannot see how this could have been ripped. It would have to have been cut. We've got a fairly strong material. We've got this plush microfiber material, which specifically micro-Rochelle, which from everything I can see is the fibers are interlocked and the fibers are quite dense. This is a good quality blanket that's not going to rip in a hurry. And like I said, it's like a twin bed. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how the sizes would work for it. Like I said yesterday, the only way, because this is synthetic fibers, this isn't natural fiber. This is plastics. So the only way that this is going to degrade enough to rip is if it had been outside for several years. Because it's got the interlocking fibers. If it snags on something, it's not going to continue to tear. It's just going to get a hole. So it does not make sense at all. Now, I know Mike is trying to track down one of these blankets, and I'm also trying to track down one of these blankets because I want to actually feel it. I want to see exactly what it is like. But, when you look at the bit that's hanging in the tree, it doesn't look overly weathered. The dispatch said it was dilapidated. Did it? I don't remember that. I'll have to go and check that. It's hard to tell if it's sun bleached or depends on the dye lots, especially when you have things like this that are bulk produced, the dye lots are going to vary with each batch. Yeah, I that's where I went to yesterday or last night. Shannon and I went searching on Kmart, and they didn't. I went and looked on Kmart and Target, and I couldn't find it on Kmart or Target. Like I said, the best I could find was, I think there was one on eBay that is in the US that would have cost me $20 US, so $30, and then $100 postage. Yeah, they are on Amazon. Again, this one didn't appear to be on Amazon in Australia. No, I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant, Shannon. Kmart sell old dolls, and they have a lot of LOL stuff. There is a Sonic one for your son, Jacqueline. If you look up, what is the brand? If you look up Franco, so FRANCO blankets, they have a whole range because they are obviously they're licensed blankets, so a little bit more. But Franco are the ones that make these blankets, and they have quite a range of the different licensed blankets. So, yeah, I did see, but again, it depends which country you're looking in, doesn't it? Because like this one, I haven't found any like this in Australia, but it's interesting. Oh, a Sonic 5th birthday in August. How gorgeous. Oh, how cute. Sonic is very cool. Yeah. Well, hopefully you can find him a Sonic blanket, because I'm sure that's something that a little boy would absolutely adore. Kmart in Australia rocks. I can spend hours just looking online. Yeah, Amazon Canada have got quite a number of these. Because I've been buying things in Canada, I'm not going to go too far down that track. If I'm searching for things like this, it will offer me Amazon Canada as an option. So when I was searching, it did show me that they have these brands of blankets, and it seems like quite a range on Canada Amazon. Yeah, they're good quality by the looks of it. Jane Doe, I haven't seen that, so I'm not quite sure. I remember years ago, and they don't do it anymore, but Kmart used to have, when they used to have cafeterias at Kmart as well, and there used to be like I think they called it the throw-out trolley next to the exit of the cafeteria. So you go and you have your meal at the cafeteria, and you come out and there's this trolley with all these things that were super, super cheap, that, you could find on the trolley, and they were treasures that you bought. Yeah, so Canada has these branded blankets. I see you've been looking. Amazon, Walmart, and Target, I could see them in Canada. Amazon seems to have the best range, although obviously Walmart would be the cheapest. This particular one, it seems like it's no longer in production, because I couldn't find it other than, one or two here and there, which Yeah. So I just have to once again say what a legend Mike MX is. Because this has been doing my head in for absolute months. Yeah. Oh, whoops. Spotlight has some licensed blankets. They've still got them. Like, I went on Spotlight last night as well. I had a very late night after I got the link from Mike for this, because I then spent absolutely hours searching for this particular blanket, and also wanting to try and find a match for the material. And so, yeah, I did look on Spotlight. They didn't have any of these. I'm thinking I might. I'm wondering if the tags when you go and buy material at Spotlight, if the tags for the material at Spotlight would have like GSM and stuff on them, because I'm really curious to get hold of some of this micro Rochelle material at the right weight and just see if it does tear easily, which I doubt it. It seems impossible given the weight, given that it is the interlocking fibers and everything. But I'd like to like physically prove that. So I must actually try and find out in terms of materials at Spotlight. Yeah, well, not only that, but Walmart is like Walmart's the affordable place, isn't it? Like, it's the Kmart version, your version of Kmart, isn't it? I haven't actually looked on Temu, crazy. Oh, they usually do, Shannon. Well, I might have to go to Spotlight this afternoon. Could cost me money because I'll end up in the craft section. Yeah, the shipping to Australia was going to cost me close to $100. Postage has gone through the roof here. There are, things that collectibles that I used to get that were originally from the United States, and the company that used to stock them here in Australia haven't stocked this year's things because of the cost of bringing them here. Someone's been doing some research for us. Yeah, they're synthetic fibers. They're interlocking fibers, so it's not like woven fibers. Yeah, I will call them after this and ask. Although, it could still be a good excuse to go to Spotlight and check out their craft section again. I shouldn't say that. I'm shocking, and I really shouldn't be spending extra money this month. It's been a costly month. Okay, I'm going to move on from the blanket. Now, I want to just address
a lot of
something
misconceptions
else.
there, or miscommunications where I said
wrong one. Sorry, I will get back to that. This is what I want. I'll just scroll past that.
Mike, some of the people listening are drinking too. So are the detectives, so are the judges. I owned a bar. I know who's drinking. And there's a lot of holier than thou people say, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. No, every morning you take a bunch of pills. You don't need to drink or do drugs. You're already set up on your pills.
I have no doubt. Now, I know that when it comes to narcissists, you shouldn't give them ammunition. But I have no doubt that this twit of a woman is referring to me, because I know that I've started a few live streams before where I've mentioned that I might have forgotten to take my Dex for the morning. I've been quite open about the fact that I have ADHD and that I do take Vyvanse of a morning. And I'm even going to name it up. I'm not ashamed. Because my medications that I take of a morning are medications that are prescribed for me to help me with my ADHD. They help me to focus. They help me to regulate my emotions, my anxiety. They help me to function in a way that allows me to keep up with the rest of the world who don't have ADHD and who find a lot of things so much easier than those of us who have ADHD. When you have ADHD, and I mentioned this yesterday, because you struggle so much with so many things relating to executive function, and especially because of the focus side of things, something that regular neurotypical people can achieve really, really easily is like a marathon. When I was at university, the level of it was hard. It was really, really hard. That was before I really understood my ADHD. So I struggled to keep up. I struggled to maintain my marks at university because it wasn't like high school where you could not bother doing any work, not bother putting in any effort and still get top marks. When you have ADHD, you are struggling flat out every day just to achieve simple things. If you're not being medicated, it might be a struggle just to vacuum your house because of the executive function thing. Your brain goes, well, that's boring. I'm not going to do that. And then you feel bad about it, so you build a wall about it. So then you really can't do it. So I'm not ashamed that I take medication for my ADHD. And I don't think anyone should be ashamed that they take medication for any sort of issue, whether it's a medical issue or whether it is a neurological issue, like a disability. ADHD, autism, bipolar, they're still considered disabilities. And taking meds for them just allow us to keep up with the rest of the world. So to crap all over people who take medication to manage day-to-day symptoms of things like ADHD is disgusting. Yeah, this is a woman who, 2 days ago passed out on a live, and you probably heard the YouTube short that I played where her speech is starting to slur and then it goes silent and then you hear a snore. This is a woman who gets drunk half the time on live streams. There's a huge difference between having a substance abuse issue, which is what I believe she does, and taking medications to help you function on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, in the other video where we could hear her snorting, there was no mistaking that. No matter what she says, there's no mistaking that. I hope that nobody ever feels that they should feel ashamed of taking medications that have been prescribed for them. Because until you've been there, until you've experienced what it's like to not function like other people, to be always behind everybody else, then you don't understand. And here's the thing. Clearly, this woman has some serious mental health issues. And just maybe, if she got a diagnosis and she actually started taking some medications of a morning, she wouldn't be going live and speaking crap like this. She also wouldn't be doing this. Yeah, she's passed out a number of times on live streams. Yeah. And he excuses her with her being tired. She's drunk. You're so right. She's drunk at every live stream. You listen to her and her speech becomes more and more slurred. You can hear her. Now, until Charmaine played that, I hadn't actually noticed, because I tend not to listen to all of their live streams because it's just tedious. But when you listen, in the quiet moments, you do hear her snorting. That's not the only time that she's been doing that stuff when it's been recorded. And yeah, you could hear it really easily. Now, here's an example of someone who someone who has substance abuse issues, and someone who probably should be medicated. I just have to play a little clip for you.
Person. Whoever Angus Beaton is, 1, 2, 3. Anita, can you stop the rumors? Hold on. And show something for proof. Tea Lady told everyone that you showed up 3 weeks after the kids went missing. First off, Tea Lady is just a lady that goes on YouTube who talks, and on her show, there's been many things sent to me while she's on substances. I don't know Tea Lady, never met her. And as far as Tea Lady's concerned, she has like a campaign. I don't know why. Maybe she needs viewers, maybe whatever. I think it comes down to because when she met me at the Tim Hortons, it didn't go the way that she wanted it to.
That was literally 3 minutes apart on a live stream. 1 minute she's saying, I don't know the tea lady, I've never met her. And literally 3 minutes later, like I saw the timestamps, she's saying, when I met her at Tim Hortons. Well, you said 3 minutes ago that you never met her. She really is 3 pricks short of a load. She would do better to actually get a diagnosis for whatever her issue is, and get real medication. And then maybe she wouldn't be making such a fool of herself publicly. Like, honestly, I've seen instances of her saying something on one live stream and then on another one contradicting herself. But 3 minutes later, 1 minute saying I've never met the woman, and 3 minutes later forgetting she's just told people that and saying when I met her at Tim Hortons. She's oh dear. Or my favourite one is one that we say in Australia, and that is a few roos loose in the top paddock, because I think that is a good description as well. Honestly. Shannon, you had the same experience as me. I have only been even treated for my ADHD in the last 10 years. I was never medicated until 10 years ago. I was diagnosed as a child, and what people have got to understand is that back in the 70s and 80s, and I'm giving my age away now, there was a real public push for people not to medicate their children. And there was a lot of negative publicity about people giving children medication for ADHD, and this notion that they were giving them medication because they couldn't control them. And this notion that ADHD was an excuse for bad parenting. So I guess for many of us who were diagnosed as children with ADHD way back then, the message that our parents were getting publicly was, ADHD is just about bad parenting. ADHD is just about people who are too lazy to teach their children how to behave and are therefore going to drug them. So I was always told by my mother, yes, you were diagnosed when you were really young as having ADHD, but I said, I'm not going to drug my children. My children are going to learn to behave. So I went through all those years up until 10 years ago, not understanding that all these things that I thought were major failures for me were simply what comes with having ADHD. No, it was still that the different variations. Back then it was still referred to as ADHD. There was like a transition. So sometimes it was just referred to as being hyperactive. Sometimes it was referred to as ADD, attention deficit disorder. ADHD is the newer term that is used, but it was starting to be used more back then. Yeah, just looking at people's comments. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people still turn around and say, I'm ADD, they refer to themselves as being ADD. It's no different. It's just a different terminology. But yeah, I was the same. I only started being treated for my ADHD. I only started understanding my ADHD about 10 years ago. Which, it's a shame, because there's a lot of people out there like me who struggled through life because of ADHD, because either they weren't diagnosed or because their parents were being publicly told by the media, if your kid's got ADHD, it's because you're a bad parent, you don't know how to get them to behave. Yeah, were you in here yesterday, Jane Doe? I was talking about neurodivergence. ADHD is now being recognised as a spectrum disorder, just like autism, which is the proper terminology for that is autism spectrum disorder, ASD. You might hear me occasionally slip up and refer to ASD. That is what is now the terminology for autism. And I was saying yesterday that it is my belief that ADHD and ASD are different ends of the same spectrum, or different elements of the same spectrum. There's so much crossover, and there's so many people now being diagnosed as having both. And I think sooner or later, there's going to be someone out there, some clinician out there who suddenly goes, well, hang on, this is the same spectrum, just showing different elements from the same spectrum. Yeah, more and more people are being diagnosed as both. And the thing is, I quite often joke and say, oh, I think I'm on the spectrum, in terms of referring to autism. But I've never had any sort of diagnosis of autism, but I've never actually spoken to my doctor or anything. And yeah, that's the other thing. A lot of people, a lot of adults aren't getting diagnosed until after their children are diagnosed. And because there's less stigma now, when children are diagnosed with ADHD or autism or something, it's not something that you get told, this is what your kid's got, here are the medications, let's keep it quiet. So there's a lot of people who have had children diagnosed with ADHD or ADD, or ASD, who from learning about their children's ADHD or ASD have suddenly realised that actually that's them. And then they've gone and got their own diagnoses. Yeah, see, both autism and ADHD present differently in girls and women. So, yes, you can still be hyperactive as a woman, but it doesn't, as a woman or a girl, but it doesn't present the same way. It's not like we're doing the really, really obvious, crazy stuff that you see boys do. And part of that is social conditioning. Because as a girl, if you were to do some dumbass thing like, I kid you not, this happened. This is a young boy that I knew when he was in grade 7. Him and his friends, during a break, broke a classroom window. And the school groundsman just took the whole window out of the frame. It was one of those old-fashioned wooden frames. So he took the whole window out of the frame to take it back to the shed and replace it with one that was already in the shed with glass in it. And while he was doing that, one of the boys that had broken that window was actually jumping in and out of the empty window. Now, boys, when they do that, that's just boys. And yeah, you deal with it. But girls aren't going to do that because they are conditioned not to act that way. But as Jane Doe says, girls are much better also at masking symptoms. You hear from a lot of women who have autism who talk about how they spent a lifetime masking their symptoms because they didn't know that they had autism. And I think that goes a lot for ADHD as well, because there is an expectation from day one. There is an expectation with girls of how you're supposed to behave. I can remember a lot of people used to give us funny looks when I was little, and Kmart used to sell Matchbox cars. They'd have them on the end of the aisle, and I'd be like begging Mum for another Matchbox car. And people would give me a weird look because I was a girl, and girls don't play with cars. And it's the same in schools. Like, there were expectations in terms of how girls behave. So I think that played into it a lot. So girls do present very differently in terms of ADHD. They also tend to present differently in terms of autism because, as Jane Doe says, they mask. You learn to mask as a girl with ADHD and ADD, ASD, because of the judgment that you get. Yeah. For a child with ADHD, by the time, now I don't know, I can never remember the exact statistic. So this is just an approximation, but it is something along the lines of, by the time a child with ADHD reaches the age of 10, they have had something like 10,000 more negative responses, negative criticism and stuff, than a child who is a neurotypical child. For a child with ADHD, their day is spent being told to sit still, stop fiddling, stop talking, get this done. Why haven't you done this yet? And what happens is that they're conditioned to get that happening in their brain. So people with ADHD and ASD, because they have been conditioned by the people around them to believe that they are a failure, they have this internal monologue going in their brain as well. So that when you face the regular struggles with ADHD, you don't need anyone else to tell you that you failed, because you're already telling yourself that. Because as a child, you've been told that dozens and dozens and dozens of times every day of your life. I've seen teachers who tell a child with ADHD to stop fiddling and pay attention. And I've heard teachers say to me, oh, you talk to a teacher about a child possibly having ADHD, and they say, no, that's just what their family's like. Their parents are like that too. And then they still ride the kid hard. And you still hear them saying, stop fiddling and pay attention, and stop fiddling and listen. When you get that from, it's not so bad in kinder, because a lot of what is happening in kindergarten classes is play-based learning. So the children with ADHD don't stand out so much. But the moment you start getting to the more formal learning, where the children are expected to sit on a mat for a lengthy period of time, or to sit at a desk and focus on a task that really doesn't grab their attention, then from like 6, 7 years old onwards, they are being given non-stop negative sanctions. Not just at school, but at home. You know, your room's disgusting. Why can't you keep your room tidy? All that sort of thing. You're more clumsy when you have ADHD. So you drop something and you break it. And you get yelled at for dropping it and breaking it. Even though you don't have the same level of coordination or motor skills or focus as other people. I know with my ADHD, it is not uncommon for me to drop something or trip over something because I'm too busy thinking about something else to focus on the simple task of carrying whatever I'm carrying or on the simple task of not walking into something. It's not easy for children with ADHD. It is definitely, it's a journey, it's a struggle. And the negativity from day one teaches them to have negativity towards themselves. So I know that got off track quite a bit. But it was something that I did bring up with Maddie Soto, because I felt there was a lot of, she wasn't understood. It certainly seems that nothing was being done to cater to her needs at her school. Yeah, look, I had to have a major operation on my ankle a few years ago. I basically had snapped the bone right through, and they had to put a pin in. That came from about, I don't know, 10 years ago, or I don't know, several years before that. I had ruptured 2 ligaments in that same ankle. And that was the reason that I ended up breaking the ankle, because I don't have ligaments on one side. So it was like there was nothing to stop my ankle twisting in. But back when I broke the ligaments, that was just me not paying attention. I walked down one step and kind of missed the step and kind of fell. And that was just me not really paying attention. You know, it's that easy when you have ADHD. That's the thing. The biggest thing for so many children with ADHD is that they go through school being told they're a failure. They go through school being expected to act the same way as neurotypical children. They're being asked to do the impossible. And you will see children with ADHD who will avoid work, who will never do any work because they're so afraid of failure. Because they fail, in their mind, they fail 100 times a day or more. So if there's a task that they think there's just a slightest chance that they might fail at, they're not going to start that task. Instead, they're going to find a way to avoid starting that task. And for a lot of boys, that results in clown behaviour. The kids that end up disrupting the classroom, not doing work, disrupting the classroom, you can bet that many of those kids are children with ADHD who are so terrified of failing that they would much rather get into trouble for bad behaviour and for disrupting the class. Especially because for a child with ADHD, when you're in a classroom, it's a sensory overload. There's sounds all around you. There's fluorescent lighting a lot of the time. A lot of teachers don't realise that if you've got children in your class who are ADHD, you are better off making sure you've got all your blinds open and turning off your lights during the day, because that sort of lighting also has an effect on ADHD children. It's a sensory overload. So these ADHD children who react in a classroom and become super disruptive, it's avoidance because they're so afraid of failure, but it's also something they've learnt gives them the reward of being removed from the classroom. Because for a child who has ADHD and they're in a room full of 30 kids who are being a little bit noisy, a little bit chaotic, or maybe in their space, there might be so many things happening around the room, so there's movement happening around the room. It's a reward for them to play up and get sent out because they get sent to a quiet place. But the thing is, they don't realise it's a reward. It is seen as a punishment. And it sets up this thing where subconsciously they want to be sent out because it means they don't have to do the work. It means they get to escape the overstimulation of being in a classroom. And that is what so many children, especially boys, go through for their whole school career. Unless people understand their needs as a child with ADHD. It's, and there's the big thing of people viewing these children in terms of their behaviour and not looking beyond the behaviour. Because the other thing with children with ADHD is that if you show them that you believe in them, if you show them that you believe that they can achieve something, they won't let you down. And they will achieve amazing things. So, I know I've just gone on a rant about that, but it is something that is so important in terms of understanding neurodiversity, understanding ADHD. And, I'm not ashamed to say I've got ADHD. I'm not ashamed to say I'm medicated for my ADHD. Because I know there are people out there who don't really understand ADHD. There are people out there who still judge people for their ADHD. There are people out there who still don't understand the struggle that children go through in school. Best approach I've seen for children who have ADHD who struggle to settle is a dedicated time of a morning where you choose a child who settles well and works well, and you line up a space with a senior staff member even, where they can go and quietly sit with their friend out of the classroom to make a start on their work. And what it achieves is that it allows the rest of the class to settle, because that child's not disrupting the rest of the class, but it also allows that child to start to focus in on their work and to settle. And then when that child re-enters the class, they haven't been sent out because they've been in trouble. They've been given a chance to go and have some quiet time to achieve while the rest of the class settle, and they come back in and they actually achieve. But a lot of teachers don't understand that. Instead, the child gets all this negativity thrown at them because they won't settle, even though the rest of the class is not settling yet, and this child's behaviour is making the rest of the class unsettled, which is escalating the behaviour of the child because they are becoming even more overstimulated. Anyway, we need to get back onto Daniel. I know I shouldn't. I go on too much about the ADHD. I really do. What I might do is, I think this is, which one do we want?
I called the
This one.
Tantal and RCMP, and 6 police cars got to my house. Anyway, my husband said, Anita, there's 6 police here. Now my husband got here, and 4 police were here. My husband said, I don't need you, and he doesn't. I did 140. I don't care if you believe me. I know what happened to me today. I called my husband. I said, they're after me. My husband said, get to the Tantal and RCMP. My husband came to the house. There was 5 police cars here. They came here, 6 police cars, and told my husband, I passed 4 vehicles doing 140. I said, I'm doing 140, and I passed 6 cars. I had to overtake 6 vehicles to get to the Tantal and RCMP. And I had to do 140 in a Mercedes, and I overpassed 3 people to get to the Tantal and RCMP. And I'm angry with the RCMP.
The silence
Mike,
of the
I had to
public
pass
is
4 cars
yes.
doing 140
Yes, Mike.
in my car. Told 3. Remember, I worked in a big law firm in Toronto. I sold my story to 3 good friends. I had a bar in Toronto. I told my story to 3 investigative reporters and said they're chasing me, and the stupid RCMP don't know what I'm talking about.
A lot of
Okay,
misconceptions there. Or
I thought that was a good one to just segue back into talking about Daniel. Again, I've just run it back a little bit with the Daniel audio. Oh, the bottom was covered. I'll play it again at the end, maybe. My dogs are, I don't know what it was they heard in that, because obviously I've got my headphones on, so they've heard it kind of secondary through the headphones, but they're all standing at the front door now because they think something's going on. So there was something about the noise in that set them off. So I'll let them settle, and I'll play it at the end. Okay, so I've gone back just a little bit with the Daniel audio, just because I like to sort of regroup and see where we're at, as in terms of where I was looking at the day before. Yeah, maybe they were looking for the circus. Okay, I'm going to mute for half a minute and just call them back. Nope, they're going to stand by the front door for who knows how long now. I have no idea what they think is going on. But anyway, let's start on this audio.
communications where I said it was Lily's and then I said it wasn't. That was never the case. If you go back to my first CBC interview, I said there was 2 blankets brought to me. There was There was Lily's piece in the tree, and there was also the solid pink blanket that was found during the search. There's 2 blankets.
What liar. Okay, and this is where we carry on from. Now he's got to throw all this back on YouTube content creators because that's what he does now. He likes to gaslight us.
I think some of the YouTube creators need to go back and watch maybe some of my interviews, because they're the ones that are giving misinformation, not me. Mhm.
We're the ones that are giving the false information. We're the ones that are claiming there's 2 blankets when there was only 1. He's a fool. He really is. He's gaslighting content creators. And the irony is saying that, we need to go back and maybe watch some of his interviews. Yeah, we have watched all of his interviews. That's why I played that, was it yesterday, all the videos at the start, where I showed all the things that he said about the blankets. We've watched all those interviews, Daniel. We've heard what you said. We've looked at the documents. We've read everything in the documents about the blankets. And some of us have even emailed RCMP for clarification. So we know that you're lying. Seriously.
Now, do you remember Lily's doll and why it could be part of, what they're looking for during these searches?
Yeah, there was a Dracula Monster High doll. I didn't even know it was missing until investigators sent me images of it, and I said, "Yeah, Lily owned that doll." Then I thought to myself, I don't remember when I gathered up all Lily and Jack's toys and their clothes. I don't remember that doll being there, because Lily loved her mermaid dolls.
Now, can I just point out, had the investigators actually gone to Daniel about that doll and asked him if he recognised it, he would have been out in public trying to get ahead of it, like he did with the blanket. Because he would have been worried that if he didn't get out ahead of it in public, that people might think it had something to do with him. So the fact that we've never heard anything from Daniel about this doll until after Cheryl came out and was telling people to search for this doll, that says to me that what he just said there was complete utter BS. Oh yeah, the word swap thing is ridiculous. He's trying to sound like he's more intelligent, but it just makes him look like a tool. So he believes, he's claiming here that the investigators sent him, or they sent him he's going to say picture and went images, because yeah, let's go with the fancy stuff. What's interesting, yeah, how many dolls are we talking about? Because then he's talking about Lily loved her mermaid dolls. He's talking about gathering up all the toys and their clothes and saying he doesn't remember that doll being there because Lily loves her mermaid dolls. I don't see why Lily loving her mermaid dolls has anything to do with him not remembering that doll was there. This is just a made-up story, as far as I can tell. Just listening to the way he's telling it, the way he's over-explaining it. I don't think someone has asked him this question before. So, yeah, get over yourselves. Sorry. I don't think someone has asked him this question before, so he's figuring it out as he goes along. Yeah, Deborah, I went to hop on that live stream. I was in there for 2 minutes and an ad came on. And I can't cope with live streams where you get ads every 5 minutes and then you lose part of what's being said and you have to run back. So I haven't watched it yet. I dipped out of the live stream because I just cannot cope with live streams that have too many ads in them. I mean, that's the reason why I don't monetize my live streams when I'm actually live, because I myself cannot cope with it. So I haven't watched that yet.
Like, she loves mermaid dolls. And I found it very odd that she would take that doll over her mermaids, because she loves her mermaid dolls much more than the Dracula one. Not unless that was already in her backpack, because that's what I'm getting out of it. Is I presume that this doll was probably in the backpack. That's what I gained from investigators, because it's missing, right? And I don't really have much on that other than that. Like,
Yeah, I know a lot of people do pay for no ads with YouTube. And I know a lot of content creators do that so they can just play stuff directly onto their streams. But I'm already paying a fortune each month in subscriptions for the purpose of my channel. So it's kind of just, a bit beyond me in terms of cost-wise. I have my video editing program that I pay for at, the subscription rate. I have two different audio programs that I pay for with subscription. StreamYard alone is nearly $50 a month, which I have to have because you can only stream 20 hours a month on the free one. So, God, when I put it that way, I'm probably already paying $100 a month in subscriptions for my channel. So, ad-free YouTube is kind of not a priority for me at all. Yeah, Daniel's just pulling it out of his ass here. I'm just going to put it that way. The raving on about the mermaid dolls, he's got no real answer for this. He doesn't know what the deal is with this doll. It's interesting that what he's saying is, so on one hand he's saying, well, I would have thought she would take her mermaid dolls with her. As opposed to taking this Dracula one. And then he's working through it in his head. Yep. He's working through it in his head. And he's saying, well, what I'm getting out of this is the doll was probably in the backpack. And that's what he says he's getting from investigators. For starters, Daniel knows full well what was with Lily and what wasn't. Unless there was something in the backpack that he missed. Could there be some truth in this? Could he be suddenly realising that, hey, that doll was in the backpack and I missed it? Could he be realising that it probably would have been more convincing had it been one of Lily's mermaid dolls that went missing? I don't know. But he's just going way beyond what is needed in terms of explanation. Do you remember, the question was, do you remember Lily's doll? And why are they looking for it during these searches? The simple answer would be, oh yeah, I do remember that doll, and I don't remember seeing it when I was packing up their things, so, but other than that, I don't know anything about it. But instead, he has to go with this lengthy explanation. So either it is him trying to sound intelligent, like he knows what's going on, or he's deflecting. I think it's something I might come back to in a separate video. I am curious what the situation is with this doll. But I can't help thinking that there was a situation where when all these bags of things were handed over, Daniel sent Belinda a photo showing these bags, and it had the children's Christmas stockings, I think, on top of the bag. And they were the only thing that Belinda had asked for. From memory, now, Chelsea or Belinda might correct me, but from memory, I think Belinda said that Jack's Christmas stocking used to be Cody's, and that Lily's Christmas stocking was one that she bought or made for Lily. So they had meaning for Belinda, and that's what she asked for. Now, Cheryl has told Belinda that they weren't in amongst the bags of things that Daniel bagged up and sent through detectives to Malaya. I couldn't say whether it was something that Daniel decided to retain or something that Malaya decided to retain. But it seems like one of those individuals screwed Belinda over and kept those stockings despite the fact that that is all Belinda wanted and because they were something of personal significance. The reason I'm saying that is I'm wondering what the significance is of this particular doll, and if maybe Daniel held that doll back for a reason. Or it could be that the doll was destroyed already, and maybe Malaya, in her lies, maybe somebody like Cindy had given the doll to Lily, and when Malaya was asked about it, she did well, I don't know where it's gotten to, because she didn't want to admit to the doll having been destroyed or something. There's a lot of possibilities here, but it is interesting the way he just really went over the top in terms of explanation. I don't know why they would deny a grandmother 2 little Christmas stockings. It's petty. From what I'm learning, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Malaya who's holding them back. Yeah, that's the biggest problem. This is all speculation. There's so many things where we can look at them and say there's more to this, but we can only speculate on it, which is so frustrating. So frustrating.
And her preferred doll, or whatever you want to refer to it as. But
Like her
yeah,
favorite toy. Okay, thank you. And then a number of questions are about if it's possible that Malaya could have had someone else pick them up, or, did the kids know that they weren't going to school that day? Like all these questions that I don't know that you would have the answer to, but I don't know. Do you know? Can you
that
speak to that?
that first
Okay. Charmaine did a great job with this interview, but I'm just going to say there, if you're interviewing someone, don't throw 3 questions at them at once. 1 question at a time. Even I lost track. Yeah, Daniel not being straightforward or clarifying any misunderstandings early on in this case speaks volumes. What they're coming up with now, we really, you're so right, we really cannot put much value on anything that's coming out right now. I want to point out that in the on the page for the reward, the $150,000 reward, the things that are shown on that page, and it hasn't been updated in any way, are images of the boots and images of the backpack. We've never heard directly from RCMP about this doll. So I think there's just some manipulation going on in the background there. Hence the reason I'm not putting too much weight on it, because what we're seeing now is we are seeing people on both sides who are scrambling to convince the public of their innocence, which it doesn't matter what the public thinks. It's not going to change the investigation. And you're just going to look like even more of a fool if you're doing all these things to try and convince the public of your innocence, and then you're arrested. Not only are you going to look even more of a fool, but all the things you've done to try and convince the public of your innocence are going to bite you in the ass when it goes to court, because they will be admissible as evidence.
kind of like a theory or conspiracy, or I've always thought that in the past, but as time goes on, I'm not too sure on the theories or conspiracies or what happened. I just don't know. And I think it was a lapse in judgment for the accusations I made. I'm not defending Malay in any way, but I just don't know. And
Again, he's struggling here. So the question was, well, there were multiple, but what he's struck on here is Malaya involved in any way? He knows that he's made these allegations in the past, and I think he's had a rap over the knuckles for it. So now he's trying to back out of it without losing face. So now he's trying to do the I know, lapse in judgment. He's trying to do the whole Narcotics Anonymous kind of speak. Well, I recognise now that I did this thing and I really shouldn't have. He's now saying theory or conspiracy. Well, him and Janie were both claiming they heard Malaya shushing the children. He was throwing out a lot of little snippets of information here and there that were not a direct accusation at Malaya, but were intended to make the audience head that way. When he's was talking to the turkey guy, and he spoke about Jack's jacket, I think it was, and he was like, well, basically inferring, well, he wouldn't have been able to get that himself. Someone must have come in and put it on him. So now I think he's, been wrapped over the knuckles for it. Maybe connected to the CPS case, because he clearly needs to be on his best behaviour if he's going to actually continue to get access to his daughter, from what I understand. So now he's got to backtrack because he doesn't want it to go against him. So now it's just like, oh, well, it was only a theory or a conspiracy, and, I thought it in the past, but, I'm not too sure on the conspiracies and the theories and stuff, or what happened. Note how he is going with that, the kind of separation kind of thing. The distancing language, sorry. He's not saying this is something that he said himself. He's being very vague about it to give the impression that this is just a theory that was going around, that maybe he'd heard and he contemplated it because he heard it going around. So there's nothing here acknowledging the origins of it. And then we get I think it was a lapse in judgment. So he's not even admitting, he is backpedaling. He's not even willing to admit that it was a bad move. It was a lapse in judgment. He's throwing in, I think, again, because that removes the blame from him entirely. He's not saying that he's accepting it as a lapse in judgment or a downright dirty move. He's using the distancing language again by adding in, I think. It was a lapse in judgment for the accusations I made. But then he's got to throw back in, I'm not defending Malaya in any way, but I just don't know. So he still can't help himself. When he says, I'm not defending Malaya in any way, he's making it clear that what he wants the audience to see there is that he doesn't believe that Malaya is guilt-free, and he's not on that train. He's the good guy here. He's not going to defend her, but he's also not going to crap all over her quite so blatantly. So he's basically turned around and crapped all over her all over again. I think we're going to see, if they continue to speak in public or speak through their mouthpieces, we're going to continue to see more of this underhanded blaming from the both of them. They're going to keep it more subtle. They are, he watches every video, and he does. He takes on every theory that is heard, but he also adapts his stories based on what people are saying. So when people call out something that he's said as being ridiculous, then he changes that story. And the other classic one is when he was doing the helicopter arms. I know I wasn't the only one who was calling it out. And then all of a sudden he stopped doing it again. Jane Doe quite possibly, but I can't put that up on the screen. Here's the thing. I think they all recognise that while they would like to throw each other under the bus, that if they do it too blatantly, that the person they're throwing under the bus might come back at them and throw them under the bus as well. It's a bit of a chess game between them, I believe. Or maybe Chinese checkers, because you've got at least 3 players here who are trying to cover their asses and are therefore trying to throw shade on other people without making it too blatant so that it's not going to come back on them. It's a bit of a tightrope thing that's going on here. I suspect that he's probably spending a lot of time watching clips though. But yeah, you're right. I would imagine that people are telling him if there's things that he's missing. I I do think Durwood has some involvement. And that's why I think a bit more of a game of Chinese checkers, because there's at least 3. Yeah, what else does he have to do? He's got plenty of time to sit and watch content. So if you're watching Daniel, hi, we don't believe your BS.
Like, I don't know what to say on that. I just don't know what happened. Like, because like I lay in bed with Meadow every single morning, and that morning was no different for me. And I thought Lily and Jack were going to school that day. I didn't know they were being marked absent. And I'm gonna say this: Malaya failed to get up with Jack and Lily that morning.
And there we go with the speech to try and help us with the CPS case. Now we are going to throw everything back on Malaya. But we have audio and video of him when he was on the Turkey channel. And the Turkey guy asked him quite explicitly, is it possible that Malaya got out of bed without you being aware that she got out of bed? And he sort of said, well, it's possible. And then he backed off and he said, but, you know, the baby was asleep on her arm. The baby was asleep with her. So he didn't think that it was possible for her to have gotten out of bed and him not notice, because it would have disturbed the baby. And now he's forgotten that he said that clearly, because now he's telling us that, well, he was the same as every other morning and he was in bed with the baby. No, you weren't, Daniel. You told us that Malaya had the baby. And then because he knows, even Charmaine is saying to Daniel and to Janie that essentially, at the very least, the people on the property are responsible for neglect. Because nobody got up when those kids got up that morning. So he's now come up with a story to get around that. He doesn't get up of a morning. That's not his role. His role is lying in bed with Meadow when Malaya gets up. So let's throw all the blame for negligence onto Malaya, because he didn't do anything different. It's his role to lie in bed with Meadow and make sure she gets enough sleep while Malaya deals with her children. So at the end of the day, if you want to accuse people of neglect, accuse Malaya. Here's the thing, though. Early on in the case, Daniel was telling everyone that he did everything for the children. Malaya didn't do anything for the children. He was the one who had to feed them and put them to bed and all these things that he allegedly had to do for the children, for Lily and Jack, because Malaya didn't bother. Malaya didn't look after them. She was not capable of looking after them. So it was his responsibility. And he did everything for them. He said yeah, thank you, Karen. You read my mind. I was about to say he said there was something that he had to do that she didn't. He claims that he was the one who potty trained them. Now, that's completely forgotten. And we're supposed to completely forget it as well. He's now basically, yeah. Now that people are pointing out the neglect, now that there is focus on both parents because of a CPS case, he needs to distance himself. So now it comes back to they're Malaya's kids. She neglected them. She didn't do these things. And I can't be blamed for lying in bed because I was being a good father and making sure that Meadow, sorry, I shouldn't mention her name, making sure that the baby got enough sleep. He said baby M was in the crib, and I don't know who put baby M in the bed. If you have a timestamp, let me know. That's probably in Sunny's 9-hour thing, because I haven't gotten through all that yet. So it's probably in there. Yeah, honestly. The guy really, he's saying that content creators need to go and watch old content, old interviews and things. He's saying we need to do our research. Well, the problem for him is that most of us actually have done that. And we know what's been said by people at what point in time. Yeah, it says in the documents that Malaya, the children were being a little bit noisy in the room next door. So Malaya got up, she got the baby, turned on the TV and took her back to bed. Here's the thing. This is one of the reasons why I get so angry at that crazy woman on Vodka Man's channel. Because the stories she's come out with in relation to the baby, she should not be talking about the baby. And she should not be talking about stuff like that. Because that stuff's going to stay there on the internet. Even if he's made all his live streams members only. They were public first. Which means that that information is out there in the public and it's stuff that gets shared. Gossip like that spreads like wildfire. Oh, look. Yes, Malaya is negligent. But when you have a property with 3 adults on that property, when apparently 2 children, 2 very young children, were up and about, and all 3 of those adults were apparently sleeping, Daniel was essentially, he was her partner then. He claims to have had a role in looking after those children. So, yes, Malaya is negligent, but so is he. And if Janie's telling the truth about hearing the children on the Friday morning and not doing anything, then she is too. Now, I know that she didn't hear them on the Friday morning. They weren't there on the Friday morning. But all three of them need to accept responsibility. I'm just reading people's comments at the moment. Yeah, the different versions, the different versions of that story for Friday morning is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There's none of the versions match at all. But what he's trying to do here is, first of all, step away from being accused of negligence, but also this is him trying to make himself look good because of the CPS thing that's going on. Look at me. It's not me who was a bad parent. It was Malaya. It's in his best interest to make her look as bad as he possibly can.
Always done the same thing when I don't work. I lay in bed with Meadow and sleep. Made sure she gets sleep because she was very young. She was just over a year old. So I don't really.
Yeah.
I mean, and anything's possible, but I just don't know. Like, we've done multiple polygraphs, and like I'm dumbfounded at the situation, like everybody else, because I always get these messages that say Lily and Jack didn't vanish into thin air, and that's 100% correct. But I don't know where they are, and I don't know where they went. I run over every single possible location I could think of, every person they could have had an interaction with, and I given all that to investigators.
Okay, so we're seeing evidence of more learning from Daniel. So first of all, he's giving the excuse of, I've always done the same thing on the mornings when I'm not working. I'm the one who lays in bed with Meadow to make sure that she's getting enough sleep. He claims here she was just over a year old, but she's 16 months. So that's a bit more than just over a year old. But then he's putting on the, woe is me, I don't know what the situation is. I can't understand the situation because, just like everybody else, I have no explanation. I'm dumbfounded at the situation, he says. And you get the repetition again with words. And suddenly we've got like thrown in every other word. So he's not finishing sentences. So he starts with, I don't really, and he doesn't know where to go with that because his brain is slammed on the brakes because he's trying to say, I don't really know what happened. And his brain is like, liar, liar, don't say that because you can't. So he changes direction. He's like, well, anything's possible because there's no denial in that. That's just a random statement that really has no meaning whatsoever. And then he has to clear his throat before he can even say, I just don't know. He's really struggling to try and play the innocent act. But then we get all the likes coming in again. Like we've done multiple polygraphs and like. And when he's trying to say that he's dumbfounded, he trips over his words again. So he's like saying I twice before he even gets on with the sentence. And, he's dumbfounded just like everybody else. That's him separating himself from the case, separating himself from the disappearance. Well, just like everybody else, I know nothing about the case, so I'm dumbfounded. I have nothing to do with the children going missing, so of course I'm dumbfounded. So, again, it's about trying to separate himself and make it look like he knows nothing. Then he's trying to play the victim again. But I think he realizes as he's doing it that that's not the right timing for it. Because he's saying, he gets these messages saying that they didn't vanish into thin air. And he's like, well, that's 100% correct. So I'm not following what you're saying, Justice for Jack and Lily, sorry. I don't understand at all what you're saying, so sorry, I'm not going to address that. He's trying to make himself one of the onlookers, someone who's not involved at all. So, I don't know where they are. I don't know where they went. And then is ranting about another channel. Oh, okay. Gone over my head. I don't really understand it all. So, yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that. He comes out with, I've run over every single possibility or possible location I could think of and every person they could have had an interaction with. This is where I'm saying he's learning. He's listened to content creators saying this certainty over they're 100% they're not in the woods. I know they're not in the woods. They didn't go in the woods. So many of us have pointed out that if you didn't really know what happened to the children, then you wouldn't be 100% certain. That is why there are still people searching the woods, just in case. So he's heard content creators talking about how if you didn't know, you wouldn't be certain in terms of, no, 100% they're not in the woods. So what he's trying to do is introduce the concept of him being uncertain of what happened. But he kind of misses it because it's very narrow what he's focusing in on here. I don't know where they are. I don't know where they went. It's denial. And it's an attempt to throw in the, well, of course, I've thought about all these things so often. But instead it just comes across straight out as denial. I don't know where they are. I don't know where they went. I've run over every single possible location I could think of. Now, when you think back to the times that Belinda has spoken about the children, you don't hear her talking about having run over every possible location that she can think of in terms of what happened to them. You hear her talking about she's run over every possible scenario, every possible situation. She's listened to all the things that have been said and run them through in her head. Because it's not about the wondering exactly where they are or exactly where they went. The big question for people who don't know is what happened. So he's kind of missed it again. He's tried and he's failed dismally. And then we get back to the story with the investigators. I'm just going to do that bit. I'm just going to do one more little bit and then I'm going to wrap it up, I think.
I've even offered investigators many times that sit down with investigators, the lead investigators and the social media team, and I said, let's sit down and you guys, shoot off as many questions as you can to me, and I'll try my best to answer every single one. But they always say, Daniel, that's not necessary, or Daniel, I can see about it, but probably not. So I want the public to be fully aware of that, and that I don't just avoid investigators. I've always
Leakage much? I don't just avoid investigators. Not something that any of us have discussed. That sounds to me like a bit of denial, a bit of leakage of something that possibly if he looks back on it, he will probably realise no one's actually made that accusation. You've got to love it when they offer up something that's not been asked for. When someone throws out something like this, they offer it up without it being asked for, good chance is that it's leakage, and it sounds like leakage to me. It sounds like he's got on a roll and it's just kind of popped out at the end of his story. Again, he's trying to give the impression of being super cooperative. It's always, he offered with the investigators many times to sit down with them. Let me grace you with my presence. Let me come and sit down with you and talk to you about what I believe happened to the children. And of course, because he's so innocent, they've always said to him, it's okay, Daniel, we don't need you to do this. It's okay, Daniel, we don't need you to do more polygraph examinations because we trust you. We know you're a good guy. Daniel, that's not necessary. He's pulling out all the stuff all the crap that he's given over the last 12 months, trying to give the impression that he's just been super, super cooperative and that the investigators are like, oh, well, Daniel, we don't need that from you because you're such a good guy. So we really just don't need that. And then he says that he'll try his best to answer every single question. Try his best to answer every single question. Why do you need to try? Because if the questions are about Lily and Jack's disappearance and it's things that you know, and it's the truth, then you don't need to try. You only need to try to answer every single question if you are stopping to try and come up with a good lie. If sorry, I got distracted. I'm not quite sure what Little Bear is talking about in terms of me going off air and Justin started playing. Although that happened to me earlier when I was watching Justin. Saying that he's going to try his best to answer questions is basically saying that He's going to try his best to come up with the best lies that he possibly can. It's the only way I could interpret it, basically. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. I will come back to this tomorrow. Yeah, you don't need effort. If you're telling the truth, there's no need for effort. Thank you for coming in, everyone. Please remember to hit the like on your way out. Always greatly appreciated. If you're watching on replay, please leave a comment. Even if you're watching here on live, feel free to go back in and leave a comment. Thank you for the gifted memberships, Magdalena. Brilliant. Much appreciated. I love you guys. I'll catch you all in the next one. And I'll unpin this comment. And before I go out completely, I will replay that Anita counting one without it being blocked.
I called the Tantal and RCMP, and 6 police cars got to my house. Anyway, my husband said, Anita, there's 6 police here. Now my husband got here, and 4 police were here. My husband said, I don't need you, and he doesn't. I did 140. I don't care if you believe me. I know what happened to me today. I called my husband. I said, they're after me. My husband said, get to the Tantal and RCMP. My husband came to the house. There was 5 police cars here. They came here, 6 police cars, and told my husband, I passed 4 vehicles doing 140. I said, I'm doing 140, and I passed 6 cars. I had to overtake 6 vehicles to get to the Tantal and RCMP. And I had to do 140 in a Mercedes, and I overpassed 3 people to get to the Tantal and RCMP. And I'm angry with the RCMP.
The silence
Mike,
of the
I had to
public
pass
is
4 cars.
yes.
Doing 140
Yes, Mike.
in my car. Told 3. Remember, I worked in a big law firm in Toronto. I sold my story to 3 good friends. I had a bar in Toronto. I told my story to 3 investigative reporters and said they're chasing me, and the stupid RCMP don't know what I'm talking about.